Also comes as we're watching the results come in for Michigan's Democratic Senate primary that we've been talking about. The emergence of a candidate like Abdul El Sayed, who 8 years ago lost his race for governor to Gretchen Whitmer by 20 points, has been part of that wider shift in the Democratic Party. One of my next sources, Congressman Khanna, has embraced that shift and has endorsed Abdul El Sayed in this race. The other, Van Jones, has warned against the Democratic Party shifting too far. Both of you are here tonight, and thank you for being here. Congressman, as you're watching this and you're seeing who progressives are backing, who more establishment Democrats are backing in this race tonight, what message do you believe an Abdul El Sayed victory would send tonight?
Look, this is not a personal race. I know both of the candidates. I served with Haley Stevens in the Obama administration. And of course, I've worked with Abdul Sayed. The reason he's winning is simple. He's fought for Medicare for all. People are very upset that they don't have health care, that their insurance premiums are going up. He's saying we shouldn't be giving more money into these foreign wars. People see their gas prices going up. They see their food prices going up, and that's resonating. And he's saying we should be taxing these billionaires and giving actually more money to the working class. And that message is resonating. But if he wins, which I believe he will, we need to bring the coalition together. Haley did incredible work with Ron Bloom to save the auto industry. I was there in the Obama administration. And we need to unify around our nominee to win this seat.
Van, how are you seeing this tonight?
You know, I got a chance to talk to young voters on both sides of this in Michigan, and I learned so much. You know, Abdul, and we know him. He was at CNN for a while. If he wins tonight, it's a first. We've never had a Muslim make it this far in the Democratic Party nominating process for a senator. So if you're a young Muslim right now, you're looking at these numbers. This is one of the biggest nights of your life to see something like this happening and what that means for you. But whenever you have a first, there's hopes and there's fears. I learned from the young voters who are, for Haley Stevens. They're afraid. They look at someone like Abdul, who's calling for a total arms embargo, not just condition the aid, not just condition the military aid, but a total arms embargo. No defensive weapons, not even the Iron Dome, is acceptable to him. They see that as a direct threat to Israel. And so there's fear, I think, for some as they watch his rise. And then at the same time, I do think that the young voters who are excited about Abdul, they told me about an economic reality that they can't handle. The price is too high. They feel like the morals of the country are wrong, that the lives of Palestinian babies are not valued. And they wanted somebody to stand up for their morals and their values. And so you've got a young generation here that's really struggling economically. They're struggling with moral questions. I think Abdul is probably going to win tonight. I think he has a tremendous opportunity to maybe back off of some of the more extreme policies. If you want to condition aid, that's one thing. But to say that Israel can't even defend itself, it can't even buy weapons to defend itself from America, that's too far. So I think he's got an opportunity to readjust, reassure some of these young Jewish voters. But this is a big moment for young Arabs and young Muslims, and I think you gotta give that moment to him tonight. It's historic tonight in our party.
Congressman, you know him, the candidate, better than I do. Obviously, you've endorsed him in this race. But, I mean, he's very brash and doesn't back off of his positions at all in his interviews. If he wins tonight, I mean, do you think he should follow Van's advice there, or do you think he'll stick to what he's been running on the campaign trail?
Well, he's going to stick to Medicare for all. I mean, he's a doctor. He wrote a book about it. And to me, that was actually the central issue that's winning this race for him. I know there's a lot of attention on the other issues, but when I campaigned with him across the state of Michigan, people were saying, look, Trump cut $1 trillion from Medicaid. Our premiums are going up. Why can't we have free universal health care in a country that's producing more wealth than ever before? He's going to stick to the idea that we shouldn't be giving our money to foreign countries and in these foreign wars, and we should be investing domestically. And I believe he's going to stick to the idea in Gaza that there was a genocide. I mean, I've been in Dearborn to the Wall of Tears. There are 19,000 names there of young Palestinians who were killed with their age. I mean, it is heart-wrenching. Of course, October 7th was a terrorist attack. That was heart-wrenching. I've met with Rachel and John Poland, and who lost Hirsch. I understand that pain, but we can also acknowledge that there was enormous pain in Gaza that was committed, and he's going to stick to that. I believe that on the Iron Dome, I have said that that's something that Israel should be able to buy, that the United States shouldn't be sending them aid, but they should be able to buy because we have 700,000 Americans there in Israel. And we don't want any civilian life to be killed. So that's something that we can continue to have a conversation about.
Look, I respect your position on that, but that's not Abdul's position. I hope that he changes that position, because to say that Israel can't even buy weapons to defend itself it's too far, and that puts a message out that it's open season for Israeli children, which we don't want. Look, I think this is a very important moment in this party. These young voters that I talked to, they were on both sides. They were very smart. This idea you have this young generation of people who are just lazy, they just want a bunch of free stuff. These young people are working 2 or 3 gig jobs. They can see that the country is not working for them. They want real change. I think if the establishment candidates, this is what happens in democracy. If you get too far away from everyday people's pain and you don't have good answers, democracy moves away from you. So I don't think it's about putting folks down and name calling, but it is about the wake-up call. If the establishment candidates have better answers, they are not getting through the next generation. They're just not.
Yeah, and some other things that Abdul al-Sayed has said on Israel. He says, I don't believe in an unconditional blank check for military aid. He's talked about what that looks like with international law. He says, I'd rather spend our money on healthcare and schools and infrastructure here at home than bombing other people elsewhere. When he was asked if he thinks Israel is as evil as Hamas, he said, yes, killing tens of thousands of people makes you pretty damn evil. It's not how evil is this one versus that one. Hamas is evil, Israeli government evil. You can say both. That was his quote.
Look, I think that kind of speaks for itself. This is the kind of thing that I think people have a problem with. Look, conditioning aid at this point, you can understand why people would say that. People feel that Israel overreacted to October 7th, but now there may be an overcorrection in our party that says don't even sell them weapons to defend their children. That doesn't make a lot of sense. The Iron Dome was Obama's attempt to protect. It's a defensive weapon, just saying you can't drop rockets on Israelis. You've now got somebody who might be in the Senate saying that's not even, that they object to that you should just leave Israeli children to be bombed and rocketed. Nobody in their right mind should say that, just like, as the congressperson said, nobody in their right mind wants all these Palestinian children to be bombed. And so I think this is why there is concern in our party that your people are going too far in one direction. But if the establishment just picks on Abdul for these excesses, and they don't listen to what he's saying about money out of politics, they don't listen to what he's saying about the corporate influence, they don't listen to what he's saying about the pain of a healthcare system that people cannot afford. Even when they get insurance, you still can't pay the premiums. Then you're missing the whole point. This is a mixed message. Some of it's too extreme, but some of it is right on the money. And the establishment has got to start listening to these young people. They've got to start listening to candidates like Abdul. And if you don't like getting whooped, like you're going to get whooped tonight, then you're going to have to make some changes at the establishment level.
Congressman, do you think that Democratic leaders will take away with that message there tonight, should he prevail?
They need to. Look, Van and I both remember when Barack Obama won and his speech at Grant Park, and how that opened the doors and changed the view of leadership in this country. I say I wouldn't have been in Congress if Barack Obama hadn't won. An Indian American of Hindu faith would never have been elected. And we both had the opportunity, along with Haley, to work for Obama. I believe the victories we are seeing across this country, Zohran Mamdani, a Muslim American person becoming mayor of New York, Abdul al-Sayed looking like he's going to be the first Muslim American to be senator of Michigan. We should celebrate this. This isn't Donald Trump's America saying, you know what, we're actually a multiracial democracy. We're a democracy that welcomes everyone. That Donald Trump, your vision, J.D. Vance, your vision of hierarchical Americans, we reject that. We're much better than that. And yes, we can have a debate about the specifics policies. I've told you that I believe we need to be protecting Israeli civilian lives like Palestinian lives, American lives. There are 700,000 American lives. But let's not lose the bigger picture about what this represents in changing. It's historic in Michigan, a swing state. And
wanna echo
every
that.
person who's brown or black or a different faith should look at this and say, you know what? I can run for office and I can become a senator. I could become president. That's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing for the
agree with
country.
Yeah.
Look, I just want
Van
to
Jones.
I just want to echo that. If you are a young Muslim kid or an Arab kid, look at these numbers. Look at these numbers right next to us. You can do anything you want to in this country. We need you. We love you. If you're a parent with tears in your eyes tonight, I get it. We can talk about, as the congressman said, the politics later. It's history tonight, and God bless you.
Van Jones, Congressman Khanna. We will continue to look at the numbers here. We're going to keep counting as John King is at the Magic Wall for us tonight. Thank you both for being here.